Okay, today's lesson, we're going to start chapter 11, which is protecting yourself from disease. And we're going to look at 11.1 today, which are the defenses against pathogens. So there's three lines of defense against pathogens. The first one is the physical defense. The second one is called the inflammatory response. And the third one is the action of antibodies. And antibodies are those that are released by the white blood cells to destroy pathogens that have invaded the body. So we'll look at our physical defenses first. Like I said, it's the first line of defense, and it involves body structures like the skin, secretions like mucus, and each of these forms a physical barrier against pathogens. So looking at this diagram here of physical defenses, looking at the eyes first, we've got the eyelids that cover the eyeball. It keeps out pathogens, it keeps out dust and other particles. We also have our automatic blink response to repel objects. And in our eyes, we also have tears. It consists of salty fluids that wash the eyes clean. We also have the eyelashes that protect the eye. Then moving on, hair traps or repels pathogens. The ear produces earwax, which traps pathogens in small particles. Our skin, it's a barrier. It's got an acidic surface, prevents pathogens from entering. It also prevents loss of body fluids. The stomach, we talked about, has a very acidic pH made of hydrochloric acid that kills pathogens. Our nose and sinuses, so here, here, and here. It has hair and mucus that traps pathogens before they can enter the respiratory system. It also warms the incoming air. The tonsils and adenoids, shown here, kind of at the back of the throat there, catches pathogens before they can enter the body. And the tonsils and adenoids, they may become infected to help the immune system resist and fight future infections. They also store white blood cells. All right, so just keep in mind, red blood cells are the ones that carry oxygen. It's the white blood cells that protect and work to protect the body from pathogens. All right, this is just showing the cilia. These are hair-like projections called cilia. They line our air passages, shown here, like the windpipe, and they function to trap pathogens. So people that smoke, so smokers, their cilia gets damaged, and therefore the cilia can't function properly. So that cigarette smoke can disable those cilia. And if we don't have cilia or the cilia aren't functioning properly, more pathogens then will reach the lungs. So you'll notice that smokers, they have that nagging cough, and that's the only way for the lungs to remove any debris from the toxins in cigarettes. Next is the inflammatory response. All right, so the first line of defense was those physical barriers. The second line of defense is the inflammatory response. So for example, if you get a sliver in your skin, you'll notice an inflammation around that area. So that's called the inflammatory response. Tissue swelling and increased blood flow. It's the body's second line of defense against further damage when the physical barrier of the skin is breached. And during an inflammatory response, the blood vessels surrounding the injury will swell, the area will become red and warm as more blood arrives. All right, and so basically if pathogens get past the physical barrier created by the skin, the body will send white blood cells. Those are part of the immune system, and they're going to defend against the invader. Another inflammatory response can happen if you are injured. For example, if you get bruised or like if you fall and hit the ground. Again, there will be some redness and swelling. It's because the blood oozes from the ruptured blood vessels into the surrounding tissue. Then white blood cells will show up and they'll engulf the damaged cells and cell parts at the site of the bruise in order to clean it up and heal the bruised area. Any kind of infection like tonsillitis, appendicitis, anytime you see an itis at the end of the words, it means inflammation of, that will also trigger an inflammatory response. So those are the three types of inflammatory responses. All right, so those two that we just talked about, the physical defense and the inflammatory response, those are called the general defenses because the body's going to react in the same way. It doesn't matter which pathogen was invading. For example, when you start blinking, when something enters your eye, it's going to happen both when it's something you want there, like if you're putting in a contact lens, or if it's something damaging such as dust. The third line of defense is called, it's the formation of antibodies in the immune system. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next lesson. Here we're just looking at macrophages. These are special white blood cells of the immune system that surround and destroy damaged cells, foreign proteins, and pathogens. So here, these white looking cells, those are the white blood cells, and macrophages are a special type of white blood cells. So we can see here, this macrophage is engulfing these bacteria. So these bacteria in the green, and this macrophage will come and basically engulf those harmful bacteria. All right, so they leave the capillaries and they come out and then can engulf the bacteria. And they can consume a large number of pathogens all at once. Here, 11.2 figure, we're looking at a splinter, and the blood vessels surrounding the splinter will swell. It'll become red and warm as more blood arrives there. And then again, the macrophages, those specialized white blood cells, they will surround and destroy the damaged cells as well as pathogens like viruses and bacteria. They'll also engulf the splinter and start destroying it. All right, so like I said, if we just go back to the very beginning, there's three lines of defense. So the physical defenses, those are the things we saw like the skin, eyelids, the tears. Next was the inflammatory response, where we see the swelling, the redness, as well as the macrophages. And then the third line of defense that we're going to talk about next class is the action of antibodies. And the action of antibodies, this is going to be more specific. So these first two were general responses. It doesn't matter which pathogen entered. There will be these general responses. The action of antibodies is going to be very specific to the specific pathogen that has entered the body. So for homework today, it is the 11.1 questions on page 196, numbers 1 to 4.